Take a moment to imagine your family. Now, try to remember what they look like. Do any stories or memories of them come to mind? Now put that into motion. Does a home movie help you to better remember those in your family? Is it possible for the voice of a loved one to trigger certain emotions, such as anger, loss, or joy? Now imagine that the visual record of your family, is gone. Now you and I are in a very similar position. Somewhere in a landfill, located in Dayton, Ohio, lies the majority of my family's photographic history. These few remaining artifacts of the past, of people who have been recommitted to the earth, of places that have long since been demolished, are very significant to me. For what is a person without a past? This is, or shall I say was, my great uncle Sonny. I never knew of him until last week. And if it had not been for this tape, I would have never been able to see him. I embarked on, and what I would now label as, a very short journey to locate the last remaining photographs of my family. Very short, because at some point it became clear to me that I hardly knew my family, specifically my father's side. This is my father.
Hi, my name is Charles McCrimmon.
He and I share many things in common. He too was never that close to his father's side of the family. My father represents a gateway to generations past, to those who came to know me before I knew how to remember, and to those I never knew. I asked him to tell me on camera what he remembers about his family, so that I could produce a series of snapshots. My father came of age in the 1960s. This was the beginning of the era of instant photography, the Polaroid. And what better place to find pictures of black faces than within the pages of Ebony magazine? Even though these images are not of family members, they very well could be.
So I'm going to give you a story about Uncle Vernon. He had this record collection of 78s. Now, if I had known back then how valuable mint condition 78 records would be today, we never would have used them as frisbees, but we did. We used them as frisbees, we used them as baseballs, we'd throw them up and hit them with a baseball bat and shatter. It was a beautiful sound to hear them go crack, and then you could throw them a mile too. Harold was, as my family would say, much like me. He was the most prosperous member of our family. He always had multiple cars in his family, and he always had a home to live in. I grew up in the projects in Dayton, Ohio, DeSoto Bass Courts, whereas Uncle Harold lived up on a hill and had a nice house with at least 3 cars at all times. And he always had a current model car. He was the first guy I know who had an Opel Kadett, which I believe was a German car, could have been a French car, but he had one. That was something that was not unique, but my family was known for being able to cook. I remember spending a summer with my Uncle Ray's house in Milwaukee, and my Uncle Ray asked us if we wanted to stay and for a year and go to school there. And the only one who wanted to stay was my brother Gary, or Kahari, and I didn't want to stay because I missed my mother's biscuits. I missed my mother's pancakes. I missed my mother's cooking. And so consequently, I wanted to get home really quick. I did not want to stay in Milwaukee.
I'm still not satisfied. In continuing on with my search, I began to look through an old wallet of my father's. Contained in material that poorly passed for leather were old credit cards, documents of my father's tour of duty in Vietnam, two pictures of his first wife, Gloria, and one series of photographs taken in a photo booth of the two of them. Though the contents of the wallet are simple, ordinary, they still manage to engage me. So what about my father? This is my father. Born in Dayton, Ohio, he grew up without a camera in his home, and prior to the mid-1970s, there were little to no photographs of him. Here we are together on the west side of Dayton, in the place where he grew up, the DeSoto Bass Courts, Section 8 housing. And not far from his home on Hughes Place are the locales of his childhood. Baseball and football fields, the boys' club, elementary, junior high, and high schools. The earliest photograph of my father can be found at his old high school, Dunbar. Here on the wall is his senior picture. There are also senior pictures of his brothers, Gary and Walter Jr., and his stepsister Martha. And so we say goodbye to Dayton. This is my father.
I'm Charles McCrimmon.
He and I share many things in common. He too in his 20s was fascinated by video production. In the early 1980s, before my birth, he purchased a JVC VHS camcorder and made this tape.
And I'm about investigating what my purpose in life is. So part of that, I think, is connected to this whole medium here. At least I'm going to see whether or not I have any skills or talents in this area. This tape is, I guess, just a test tape to see how well camera performs. So far, I'm pleased with it. What about you? If you like it, why don't you write me here at 1426 Lockbourne Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. Tell me what.
And so, as he insisted, I decided to write him a letter. Dear Dad, I only have one question to ask you concerning the videotape you made of yourself over 20-something years ago. Did you ever think that I would see it? Maybe he'll write me back. My search for images is still not over, not by a long shot. In order to finish, I'll have to continue on collecting stories, finding artifacts, and producing new images